Resident Evil is a 1996 survival horror video game developed and published by Capcom, originally for the PlayStation. It is the first title in Capcom's Resident Evil franchise. Players control Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine, member of the Elite Task Force STARS, who must escape a mansion infested with zombies and other monsters. Resident Evil was praised for its graphics, gameplay, sound and atmosphere, although it received criticism for its voice acting.
Whoa! This hall is dangerous!
It was internationally bestseller and became the best-selling PlayStation game ever at the time. Resident Evil is often cited as one of the most influential and greatest video games. It is credited with defining the survival horror genre and with returning zombies to popular culture, leading to a renewed interest in zombie films by the 2000s. Fans were eagerly waiting for a sequel, curious where Capcom would take the franchise. Resident Evil 2 received acclaim for its atmosphere, setting, graphics, audio, scenarios, overall gameplay and its improvements over the original game, with some criticism towards its controls, voice acting and certain gameplay elements. The gameplay focuses on exploration, puzzles and combat. The main difference from its predecessor are the branching paths, with each player character having unique storylines, partners and obstacles. It is widely listed among the best video games ever made. Besides its release on the PlayStation, it was later ported to Windows, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast and GameCube, and a modified 2.5 version was released for the GameCube handheld. In this version I will be comparing every release and I will determine which one is the best one to play today. I will not only be comparing the graphics, but also each version's features and gameplay differences. I will be excluding the 2019 remake from this video. The remake is a great game, but it differs too much from the original to replace it. I will also be excluding the Gamecom release for the same reason. Without further ado, let's get into it. The PlayStation 1 version was the first release of Resident Evil 2. There are two versions, the original release and the DualShock version, which as the name suggests, has vibration support, arrange mode, extreme battle mode, and supports joystick controls, but it's still tank controls. The DualShock version makes the original one obsolete. If you use the control type C, you enable auto aim, which I do recommend. The PlayStation 1 controller works quite well with this game. Because of the tank controls, I do recommend using a D-pad instead of a joystick, and I personally do like the D-pad on the PlayStation 1 controller. The footage you are seeing on the screen was recorded on an original PS1 with an RGB cable connected to a GBS-C to my Elgato that is recording. I recommend playing this game on a PS1 connected to a CRT for the best experience. But where else can I play this version? Well, the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 are backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 games. Besides that, the PSP and therefore the PS Vita can run select PS1 games that you could purchase on the PSN store, and they run great on there. Lastly, you can use a PlayStation emulator to play this on your PC, phone and many other systems that support emulators. On the PC, I personally like to use DuckStation. I don't really think that using an emulator to upscale this game does a lot, because all the backgrounds are 2D rendered, meaning they are pixelated pictures that when upscaled still stay pixelated. That is why I think this game is best played on a CRT, because it looks great there. The CRT is made for low resolutions. All in all, this is a great release, the most authentic version, and there is nothing wrong with it. It's on the lowest rank because this is the most bare bones release, which makes sense because it's the first one. The Nintendo 64 version of Resident Evil 2 was the first game in the series ever to be released on Nintendo platforms. It is one of the few games released for the N64 to have FMVs, overcoming the limited storage space on the cartridge. The PlayStation version with 2 CD-ROMs of up to 757 MB per disc was faithfully replicated with unique enhancements on a 64 MB N64 cartridge. In the process, audio and video assets had to be more aggressively and creatively creatively compressed using novel techniques that shift the burden away from storage and towards the console's high real-time processing power. This version offers features that were not included on any other system, such as alternate costumes, the ability to adjust the degree of violence and to change the blood color, a randomizer to place items differently during each playthrough, and a more responsive first-person control scheme. Additionally, the port features 16 new in-game documents known as EX files. Hidden throughout the 4 scenarios, they reveal new information about the series' lore and connect the story of Resident Evil 2 to those of the other installments, including some that had not been released yet, like Resident Evil 0. The Nintendo 64 version adjusts its display resolution depending on the number of polygonal models currently on screen and supports the expansion pack accessory for a maximum resolution of 640 by 480 during gameplay. Other visual enhancements include smoother character animations and smarter perspective-corrected textures for 3D models. This is the only version to use surround sound, with the soundtrack converted to Dolby Surround. The team reworked the sound set from scratch to provide each instrument with a higher sample rate than on the PlayStation, resulting in higher quality music. Some features from the other enhanced versions based on the DualShock version do not appear in the Nintendo 64 version, such as the Extreme Battle minigame. All these features make this one of the most impressive ports in any video game ever. The Nintendo 64 controller works well with this game because of the big D-pad the controller has. If you want to use the first-person control scheme, meaning that you want to use the joystick to move around, it's not as functional as you would hope. When you move in a direction and the camera changes, the character would control like it's still on the first camera angle until you let go of the stick and start moving around again. Here is an example. The Nintendo 64 is best played on a CRT using S-video cables. You can also install an expensive mod to add an HDMI port to your console. I personally had to use a cheap HDMI adapter that looks horrible because my other output solutions didn't like the fact that every camera angle made the screen resolution different. Besides playing this game on the original console, you can also emulate the game using Angry Lion RDP. Any other video plugin like Parallel did not work for me when I used RetroArch. I did see some videos online of people successfully emulating it without any problems or inaccuracies, but I couldn't get it to work, so your result may differ. All in all, I don't recommend this version if it's your first time playing because of the low quality FMVs and sounds. But if you love this game and never played this version, the randomizer and EX files will make this release worth playing. The GameCube got its fair share of Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 0, Remake, Code Veronica X, and Resident Evil 4 came out on it. And Resident Evil 2 and 3 got a port as well. The Resident Evil 2 port is pretty good, but it didn't add a lot and they could have done more with it. The FMVs look better than they did on the PlayStation 1, but they are still not the best out there. Both character storylines are on one disc and you can easily switch between them. A cool little detail is that the title screen's voice was changed to sound like the one from Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 2.
The backgrounds look slightly better than it did on the PS1, but the change really isn't that noticeable. One feature I did like was the cutscene skipping, which a new player shouldn't use, but it's very useful when you have played Resident Evil 2 a lot like I have. I personally did not like to use the GameCube controller in this game. As I stated previously, I preferred to use a D-pad and not a joystick for tank controls. The GameCube controller is one of my favorites, but the D-pad is really small and it's almost unusable in a game like this. I did get used to the joystick, but it really did feel less accurate. I recorded this footage you're seeing by using a GC plug on my GameCube attached to an M Classic. It looks great this way. If you don't want to play on a GameCube, you can always play it on a Wii. If the Wii has GameCube controllers on the top, it's natively compatible with the GameCube. And if there are no plugs on the top, then you will need to mod your Wii and install Nintendo in order to play the GameCube games. Because of this, you can also use a modded Wii to play GameCube games after just installing Nintendo on the virtual Wii. If you want to emulate the GameCube game, you can also use Dolphin and it works great. When you use Dolphin, you can also use the Seamless HD project, which is a complete texture pack. Using AI, the backgrounds look much better and the FMVs look even better than before. Only problem is that because it's AI upscaling, some parts might not look the best. Some straight lines might become warped and the whole image loses its original grid. But in general, I do think it looks better, and if you prioritize graphics, then you should play this way. The Dreamcast, Sega's last console, had a few Resident Evil games. Code Veronica's only non-X release, Resident Evil 2 and 3. This release had the most extra features without any sacrifice. There are two new difficulties, Expert and Nightmare. Expert makes every enemy and boss a tiny bit stronger, and very specific spots have extra enemies. If you can handle normal without a problem, then you should not have any trouble with Expert. After beating Expert, you will unlock Nightmare difficulty. This is where it gets real. Each ammo pickup is a little more ammo, but every enemy is way more dangerous. The only thing that makes this difficulty possible is the addition of getting headshots with a handgun. I do think that these extra difficulties makes this release the best for hardcore fans. Besides Expert and Nightmare, you also have the hard difficulty, which you have to unlock. This is not exclusive to the Dreamcast, however, it's also available on the PC release. Another cool feature the Dreamcast has is that there is a key config like on the PC, meaning you can change the controls just how you like it. Auto-aim is enabled and cannot be disabled for as far as I can tell, except for when you're playing arrange mode. Like if you're playing Nightmare or Expert, then it would be turned off. One thing that might be a glitch or that is missing is that there's no music in either the police station courtyard and in Marvin's office. Last but not least, a very cool and unique feature is the Dreamcast VMU. The Dreamcast memory card has to be plugged into the controller just like you would on a Nintendo 64, but this one has a screen. When playing Resident Evil 2, that screen will display the weapon you are holding, the amount of ammo that is in the weapon at the moment, and your health condition. I do really like this feature. It's quite useful in bigger gunfights and boss fights because reloading in your menu is much faster than reloading during gameplay. Last but not least, the FMVs look better here than they did on the GameCube. The aspect ratio is different and the quality is amazing. Now, the Dreamcast was not the most popular console and not everyone has the ability to play it. Using the Redream emulator, Resident Evil 2 was actually much better than I expected. I really thought that Dreamcast emulation was not there yet at all, but I did not have any frame drops or any glitches, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think this release was the most complete and extra version of the game, therefore is a great way to play. Now, there are two releases for the PC, an English Windows 98 and a Japanese Windows XP release from 2006. The Windows XP release is published by Source Next and is in my opinion the best release of Resident Evil 2, or should I say Biohazard 2, which is the Japanese title. Obviously it's not ideal at all that the game is in Japanese, and that's where the Rebirth mod comes into play. Not only does this mod make the game English instead of Japanese, it also adds the ability to enable auto-aim, quick turn, tactical reload, disable censorship, add modern controller support with rumble, and texture warp correction on 3D models. This mod really is a must and it's really easy to install. Just acquire the Source Next release and drag the mod files into the game directory and that's it. The PC port has a hard difficulty that's equivalent to the Dreamcast Nightmare mode, but from what I can tell it's a little bit toned down. A big feature that I like is the ability to skip door opening loading screens. In the end, this really does save a lot of time after a whole playthrough. This version has both characters built into the menus just like the N64 version did. The FMVs in this release are the best out of every single release. The same story goes with the backgrounds and just everything about the graphics. This release really does look amazing. Because of these reasons, I think that this is the best all-around version to play. I hope you learned something from this video. If I missed anything, please do let me know. Just to make this video, I had to beat Leon A scenario about 7 times. It really did take a while to make this video, so I would love and appreciate a like and a subscription. If you have any other suggestion for a game I should make a best way to play of, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching.